What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another GMC podcast, a special podcast. Last month we did Faith Leapers, where we highlighted women, female entrepreneurs, people, sisters who took a leap of faith and bet on themselves. And this month we're doing something a little bit different, but overall with the same theme. Obviously, I'm Chris, it's Mike, Rich, and what we're doing is we're doing a special series called Networking November, where being on this road to entrepreneurship, where we have to highlight and focus on certain things to be able to help people and help everybody on their on the road to financial freedom and entrepreneurship. And one of those things that is essential is networking, because it's not about what you know, but more so who you know. And with that being said, our special guest that we have, this man is one of the top managers at IBM, published author of these two books. You have Polished, Young Professional's Guide for Success, as well as Polished, Preparing for What's Next. And I shot the cover. But anyway, none other than, I'm going to let this man speak for himself. Huge mentor. Like, these books for me personally were kind of like my blueprint on this road to entrepreneurship. Okay. And one of the things that he highlights in this book is networking, chapter 8 of this first book, and I want to talk about it. So none other than my uncle, Calvin Purnell Jr. Uncle, what is happening?
You got a giggle out of that.
What's going on? How you guys doing? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah. So
definitely appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely. So just to break the ice, please tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, what you do or what you do now, what you've done, and where you came from. I know your story because we made a movie out of it, but I want you to I want the people to get straight from the horse's mouth of what you do.
All right, so that's a good question. What do? I do a lot of things, but right now, like, my main focus is working at IBM. And one of the things that I do have to say before we even go any further, I'm not here representing IBM. I'm here representing myself, Calvin Purnell Jr. And everything that I say, and I'm not representing IBM in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, basically, Calvin Purnell Jr., born and raised in Philadelphia. One of the things that I truly focus on right now is development of young professionals and even seasoned professionals. That's something that that is near and dear to my heart. Something that I've been doing since probably like 15. Started working at McDonald's and basically did that just to get my friends off the streets from being influenced to sell drugs and so forth. So I started working there, and then I just started pulling each of them in one by one. And back then I didn't realize I was being a mentor or a coach or anything like that. That didn't hit me until about 24 years into my career that's what I was doing. And that was 24 years into my career, 2 years after publishing the first book. Still didn't realize that's what I was doing since I was 15. But when it came full circle is when I became a business coach at IBM. And that taught me the difference between coaching and mentoring. And a lot of times people will think a coach is a mentor or a mentor is a coach. Two different hats, two totally different hats. When you think about coaching is helping your client have a path forward. When you think about mentoring is pouring into someone and having like a inductive process where you're pouring into them. Coaching is deductive, where you're pulling something out of that person, right? So those are the two different hats that you have to wear when you're one or the other.
You say that again?
It can easily get confused, but once you learn the difference between the two, I said they can easily get confused. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I want you to actually say that whole coaching and that breakdown again.
The difference between coaching and mentoring.
That breakdown again, if you can.
Okay. Yeah. So you think about it from think about coaching as a deductive process, right? So coaching is where you're working with someone and helping them have a path forward, helping them pull out a path forward. Okay. So it's a deductive thing. So as the coach, you're going to ask open-ended questions, right? You don't want to ask any closed questions. Those open-ended questions are basically action questions. How are you going to do this? What are you going to do? Those types of things, right? And it makes that person dig inside of themselves to pull the answers out for themselves. The coach is never going to supply the answers. They're going to lead them in a direction where they have to dig into themselves and find what that answer is, and then also put themselves on a path of saying, okay, this is what I need to do. This is what I'm going to do. And this is how I'm going to do it. And this is what I'm going to do it by. Yeah. So you have your process where you actually have your coach holding you accountable for the things that you said you were going to do. Right? Mm-hmm. So from a mentoring standpoint, mentoring is inductive. You're pouring into someone. So the person that you're working with, the person that you're mentoring, as the mentor, you're pouring into the mentee. You're providing them with information that you have based on your personal experiences, things that you've learned along the way, and giving them some guidance and some direction, and also helping them set goals for themselves based on what they're looking to accomplish in life. So those are the differences. Gotcha. Coaching is deductive, pulling something out of the individual. Okay. Mentoring is inductive, putting something into the individual.
Okay. Yep. Nice. Appreciate that, man.
All right.
All right, cool. Yeah, no problem. So it's a big breakdown, right? So one of my mentors taught me about the knowledge model. So you have coaching on one side, mentoring on the other side, and it's kind of like the parentheses, but both of them at the top have an arrow at the top. So coaching is, and then let's just start at this, at the bottom level of each process. It starts with, I don't know what I don't know, right? Right. So once the person is, realizes which direction they need to go in, whether it's the coaching side or the mentoring side, and they say, okay, I don't know what I don't know, that's a level of awareness. Now I don't know what I don't know. So now let's move over to the mentoring side. From the mentoring side, it goes into, again, inductive. Now you know what you don't know because you're talking to your mentor, and these are the things that I want to accomplish. And your mentor says, oh, okay, these are some of the things you need to do. So now the mentee knows what they don't know, right? Okay. And then over time, it moves into, now I know what I know. And now you take an action plan and you start to move into that direction of implementing and doing the things that you need to do based on the things that you know now. Now, from a coaching side, again, bottom level is, I don't know what I don't know. And then it moves into a deductive phase where the coach is asking those questions. And then it turns into, I don't know what I know. Right? Mm-hmm. So now you're starting to ask more of those open-ended questions. Right. Where it's like, now the coach is asking you, like, all right, now I'm digging inside of you and I'm pulling this rope out of you. And then you start to say, okay, now I know what I know, and you move forward. So that's pretty much it. Okay. But yeah, so like the other things is, that I like to work on is writing. I published 2 books so far, working on a third to finish out the series and polished. I'm hoping to have that done probably. I'm not even going to put a time frame on it because that's going to be putting too much pressure on myself. I'll get it done when I get it done. But realistically, one of the things, like I said, writing books, public speaking, those are the things that I really enjoy doing. I'm going to start working on, because we're in the COVID environment, I'm going to start working on speaking engagements virtually, having the opportunities to do that, get myself back out there in the speaking field. I haven't done anything this year, just dealing with some personal things, and it's just taking some time to recharge because of everything that's been going on, dealing with some close deaths in the family. And I just say, you know what, let me just take a step back and just chill and just regroup. So 2021, the focus is, keeping my foot on the gas and moving forward. So, but yeah, so that's what I do. And then, all of that I'm explaining, I do that in my job as well. I manage a team of engineers, and everything that I explain to you all here, I do the same for them. I make sure that they're properly aligned with their gifts and talents. And, if they have the drive and passion to utilize their gifts and talents inside of the organization, why not capitalize on it? It makes life a lot easier for you. So that way, when you get up every morning, you're not dreading to go to work. You're like, you know what, I'm going to work because I'm about to go play basketball. That's the way you look at it. And you have fun. So that's the kind of guidance that I give my team. Think about it from that perspective. And that way, when you're at work, it's not like it's work. You're just having fun. Sure. And real, when you're in a situation where you're working for an organization, it's important to make sure you align your personal beliefs, your gifts and talents into what you're doing. And it just makes life a lot simpler for you.
Gotcha, for sure. Man, let's get into these questions.
Oh.
And that was just a lot, like just breaking the ice. But
I need that game.
yeah, that was real game for sure.
No, I'm still on that.
So, all right. So this is like these questions are more on a personal tip for like myself as well as my partners here.
Right.
You know, we're all introverts. Even Calv, I know you're an introvert too. So just to kick this off, how do introverts go out and network?
When you sent me the questions ahead of time, I kind of laughed at that because I guess it's up to the individual. I can speak for myself. I can't speak for other introverts. It just takes some time, right? Because I know for me, when I started networking, or I had the idea, okay, you want to grow your career, you want to grow your network, you need to go out there and actually network and put yourself in rooms with people who can move and shake and make things happen, and how you can get into that same room and help people move and shake and get things done too. Like, because it's not always about take. When you're networking, you need to give more than you take. And that's how you build credibility for yourself. But as an introvert, one of the biggest problems that I had is actually going into the room, registering for the networking event, getting to the door, and then walking through the threshold. There were times where I would get to the door and I would just turn around because I'm like, man, this ain't me. I can't do it.
Wow.
But it's a mindset thing. I had to tell myself, you know what, do you want to stay here or do you want to go there? And the answer to the question is, I want to go there. And it's like, if you want to go there, you got to go through that door. So I had to start going through the door. And once I started going through the door, me being like a wallflower introvert type of person, not really into introducing myself to people and having, detailed conversations, I had to force myself to do it. But one of the things that I learned to do is watch people and mimic them. I'll see someone who has a style that I particularly like and I feel like I can adapt to, and I start to recognize what they're doing and I pay attention to it, and then I'll mimic their style, because now it turns into me mimicking their style, but then I flip it and turn it into my personal thing, right? Okay. Because we're all individuals. We have our own fingerprint. We have to do things our own way to make it comfortable for us. So, and that's the other thing. You have to make sure that you're coming off as authentic, because just because you're mimicking someone's style, you don't want to come off as you're just like that person.
Right? Absolutely.
Right? Because we all have different things to offer. And some things may be similar. Some things may look exactly the same, but until you start to dig below the surface, then you start to recognize the foundation is totally different. Yeah. People are built different. That makes sense. So I had to, like I said, mimic those individuals, start getting through the door and introducing myself. I had to come up with a pitch, a 30-second pitch, introducing myself, talking about who I am, what I do, what I can offer other people, those types of things. And once I started getting a little bit more comfortable with that, life became a little bit easier. Then I found out a trick. So because I started going to networking events, I started meeting people, and then I started going to more networking events. And there were some of those people that I met in the past in those same rooms. So what I would do is I would go up to those individuals, start having conversations with them, and ask them how they're doing. What have you been up to? Those types of things. Have fun with them. And what that does, it brings attention to me, because at this point we're in the mix of a conversation, and people start to look around and say, that's a new face. Why don't I know him? So because I go up to the people that I already know and work the room and talk to the people that I know, catching up with them, now it makes me look like I'm the person that everybody needs to know. And then it brings people to me versus me going to them.
Wow. Okay.
So that's one of the tricks that I had to do for myself. And once I did that, every time I went into a room full of people that I didn't know, but there were some there, people were wondering, like, how come I don't know this guy? How come everybody else knows him and I don't? And it made it a lot easier for me from that point.
Yeah, going back to your second book here, a link in the description. I had to highlight this because I feel like this was very powerful. You said being authentic and genuine will take you places you never thought of going just by happenstance. Could you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, right, being authentic is key. Nobody wants somebody who's going to be fake. They don't want to know them. They don't want to associate with them too much, because if I meet you and I recognize, you told me this, that, and the other about yourself, and then over time I start to realize that that's not who you truly are, that's going to make me start second guessing and wondering, all right, so what you told me before, is that really who you are? Or is it not really who you are? Now I got to play the guessing game. I don't want to play any guessing games. Just be straight up with me. Tell me what the real deal is, who you are, what you have to offer, what you can do, or what I can do to help. Ask me what I can do to help you, what you can do to help me, those types of things. So, being authentic is going to take you so much further in life, because now it doesn't keep people guessing. You don't have to be in a situation where people are wondering about you. Like, okay, I don't have to try to figure this person out because I already know what's going on here. And I think that's just the biggest deal. I mean, to me, I feel like it's self-explanatory. When it comes to being authentic, just think about counterfeit things, right? Okay. Counterfeit things. If you're up on counterfeit, if you're up on authentic items, let's just speak on items. Mm-hmm. If you know exactly what certain things are looking like as far as quality is concerned, let's take Gucci as an example. You see Gucci, it's a quality product. And if you see a knockoff Gucci, you look at it and you're like, this doesn't seem like it's Gucci quality. And you're looking at it, you're like, yeah, this isn't right. This isn't authentic. This is fake. You're going to push it to the side, but you're going to gravitate and hold on to that authentic thing. People mm-hmm. gravitate to people who are authentic. And, because they don't have to guess, they don't have to wonder, that right. Thought process doesn't even enter their mind because they know exactly who this person is. There are no tricks up their sleeves. Mm-hmm. This is face value of what I'm getting. Right. So I think that's what's very important is, having that level of authenticity. Everybody's not going to like it, and you have to be okay with that. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, being true to yourself, because now you don't have to worry about faking and remembering what you told this person versus what you told the next person. Mm-hmm. Being true to yourself, being authentic is going to help you remain that way. And that's very important, because now you don't have to worry about, playing both sides of the fence, so to speak. If that makes sense.
Yep. Brothers, you have any questions?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about, like, when you go into your networking, and especially when you're dealing with the youth now, and I see you doing a lot of things with the youth, and we like to do that as well. How do you get it to the point where you let someone know, and when you're letting them know with networking, how not to talk about maybe too personal things or to open up more? Like, how is it that you tread that line when you first meeting people and coming up and trying to explain to people who you are and what you do?
That's a good question. I don't know that I've ever told anybody not to do that, not to let too many things in, or, too much out about yourself.
Right.
I'll have to go back to this one story. One time I'm out networking, and this guy, he comes up to me, introduces himself, and he says who he is, and he's like, so who are you? So I started telling him my name, and he's like, so what do you do? And at that time I was working at the National Park Service. I was like, I'm a help desk supervisor at the National Park Service. And he was like, whoa. No. What do you do? Mm-hmm. And it took me a second to realize what he was talking about. And I said, oh, you want to know what I do as a person, what Calvin, like who Calvin Purnell is? And he was like, yeah, now we're talking. So at that point, it like broke the ice. He didn't want to know what I did for a living. He wanted to know what I do for life. Right. Mm-hmm. So that part was like eye-opening for me, because now I use that same question when I go out, to networking events, and I ask people, so what do you do? And as soon as they start to go into that, what they do for a living, I'm like, I don't even want to know about that. Talk to me about what you do for life.
Gotcha.
And that helps that person become more authentic and be authentic in that conversation. Right. So I think that's the key. So if you're out talking to youth and you're talking to them about, networking, being authentic, you can't really tell them not to be themselves, Right. Okay. And I think that's what helps other people gravitate to you. And that's how you start to develop your audience. That's how you start to develop your tribe. And that's how you start to develop the people who will want to work with you and do business with you and sponsor you for whatever, right? Because they know exactly who you are. And again, that level of authenticity is key, because now you start to talk about what you do for a living, or what you do for life, and that person that you're talking to says, you know what, I know a person that will be able to help you out in this particular area because they do similar things as you. Right. And that's where the introductions start to happen. People start to come to you and say, yeah, I know this person. I think you guys would be a good connection with each other. Mm-hmm. And you get to build relationships, because that's the key. When you network, you want to build relationships with people. You don't want to just go to networking events or network with people just to collect business cards and phone numbers and let them stack up. Like, I made that mistake. And, you do that if you're in the sales. If you're in sales, you stack up business cards, because now you want to, at the end of the day, you want money, right? So you stack up those business cards and you follow up with those individuals, and you do whatever you can do to sell them a product or a service. Now, when it comes to being authentic with your network, and like I said, you start to develop your tribe and the people that come around you just as well as you come around those people because you have similar traits, similar things that you're into. That's key, because you can network with 1 million people. It's a good chance that 999,999 won't work, but that one will be the one.
Absolutely.
You know? So that's the key. That's the key. Well, yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to youth, just tell them to be themselves, but also learn how to be professional, learn how to speak directly to people and speak from a level of knowing what you're talking about and not just coming off using street slang, right? Because you can't go into these rooms and talk to people who are of some sort of business mindset or whatever. You want to talk like you have some sense about you. You want to talk like you know what you're doing. You want to talk like you know where you're going, and you want to talk like you are already there. So, it takes practice. It's not something that happens overnight, because trust me, I still do it to this day, networking with people, stumble over my words, that's just a habit, but ultimately, once you start to develop your skill set and the conversation and your talking points, it becomes smooth. And, people don't know that you messed up until you tell them you messed up, right? So just tell them to keep it simple, be who you are, but also, try your best to be as professional as you can and have some sense about you. That's the best. I guess that's the best advice I would be able to give the youth.
All right, cool. Rich, do you have a question before I move on?
I just listen to Kyle and take notes and steal from Kyle. You know what I mean? And again, like this.
Listen, man.
My Instagram today. This is great. Like you already know how I feel. I don't talk when Kyle speaks at all. I just absorb it. I take notes throughout the whole interview.
It's all yours.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, brother.
So I wanna go
all
back.
Yours.
Listen. I want to go back to a point that you was making about collective business cards. You talk about this in your second book. You have a chapter entitled connecting versus networking. And so my question is, what's the difference between the two?
I mean, I think, it depends on the person. That was just my opinion, right? Mm-hmm. Networking to me is you go to these events and you meet people, or not even events. You can just be out in the street and you network. Be out where in the store, you network and you meet somebody, mm-hmm. You exchange your information, then you go about your business. You don't do anything with it. Or you could follow up. That could be networking too. You could just reach out to the person within 24 to 48 hours and say, hey, just wanted to follow up with you. We met the other day at this such location. Our conversation was about this, that, and the other. And I just wanted to see if we can continue the conversation at some point. Some people do, that's connecting. The people who don't do that, that's networking. They only reach out to that person when they feel like they need something from that person, or they want to offer them a product or a service versus following up on the conversation and continuing the conversation, getting to know the person a little bit more, finding out what you can do for that individual to help them. And you're adding value to them based on what you have to offer without trying to sell them a product or a service. Right. Ooh. So I think that's the difference, because people, I'll say this. I personally like to be connected with versus somebody networking with me. Connect with me. Find out what I do for life. Let me find out what you do for life. Let me find out what school you went to. Let me find out, who you hang around with. Let's talk about the books you read. What podcasts are you listening to? That's connecting, right? You get to understand who this person is as an individual versus what they can do for you or what you want to sell them. Right. So for me, those are the differences.
Okay. Man, you just kind of answered the next question that I had about, what some of the professional questions, but I just skipped that one and go to, what are some of the mistakes people make when it comes to networking? Like either like work in a room or you just walking down the street or you're in like a cafeteria or something like that. And you want to be able to, you're going out with the full intention of networking, but what are some of the mistakes people make when they're trying to network?
One is not following up after they met the person. That's a huge mistake. You go out with an intention of networking, meeting people, you get their information, get their contact, whether it's an email, cell phone, whatever, you don't follow up. You just you're collecting information. The other thing is trying to sell to them the first time you met them. They don't know you. People buy things from people they know and they like, right? Or they feel like it can add value to them. But if you just met this person and you introduce yourself, they introduce themselves, and next thing you know, hey, I want to sell you my book. Like when I'm meeting people, I don't even tell people I'm an author. I don't tell people I'm a public speaker. And I just have a conversation with them. And if it comes up, they're like, well, or somebody brings it up, or later on somebody says, oh yeah, or they say, hey, I just found out you wrote 2 books, you published 2 books. How come you didn't tell me? I didn't think it was important at the time. You know, I wanted to get to know you for who you are versus me trying to push my books down your throat, because my books may not be for you.
Yep.
I didn't write my books to get rich. I wrote my books to supply information to people who needed it. And if you feel right, life is going to keep moving on. But at the end of the day, my books are for people for those individuals who need it. And one of the things that Napoleon Hill talks about in his book, A Teacher Will Appear, to me that resonated because I've purchased and I didn't apply any of that information. I bought a lot of books that I still have that I haven't even opened yet. The reason they haven't been opened yet is because I ain't ready for the information that's in it. So when my life starts to change, the information that's in that book, I'll gravitate to that book that I bought. I'll start to read it. And then I'm like, now I understand why I picked this book up and finally read it after having it on my bookshelf for 20 years. Absolutely. Because that information there is, I'm ready for it. I'm ready to learn it and I'm ready to apply it. So I kind of feel like I went off on a tangent.
No, good, because I was going to say the good thing is that information doesn't expire.
I just think it was, I just think it's important to, to make those connections and not to make the mistake of trying to push the service or product down people's throats the first time you meet them. Those are the 2 things I think people make mistakes on. Just to draw back to the question is not following up.
Yeah, it's freezing up. So yeah, just keep going. If you hear this, keep going.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's it though. It just, I feel like what I said was relevant to the question. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's just, the follow up is important. That's very important. If you don't do that, you just wasted your time and that person's time. And if you're trying to force a product or a service down forward, because at the end of the day, when they see you again, they're going to run away from you because they're going to be like, all this person wants to do is just sell me something. And, it may the product or service may not be right for them at the time, but when you connect with those individuals on a different level versus that product or service. Okay. So yeah, so when you connect with that person for that product or service, they'll like you more. And even if it's not for them, they'll be able to refer you to somebody that they think that'll be beneficial to.
Gotcha.
All right.
All right. It froze up on me like big time. I don't know if y'all.
Yeah, we got
clean up, man.
We got it. We got it. All right. So
that's gonna make that look awesome.
Last question.
It must be catching up. I don't know.
It's delayed. Don't worry about it. Okay. I'll end it with this question. How can I prevent myself from being used because of who I may know? I'll wait for it to catch up.
You want shaking your head? It might not have went through.
Can you hear me?
That's a good question. How can you prevent yourself from being used because of who you may know? I'm trying to think of a real life scenario. I can hear you.
Okay.
It must be delayed. So are we caught up? Is it still delayed?
We good.
I'm gonna be quiet until you guys get back to me. And I'm not saying anything else after this. Give me a thumbs up.
Good.
All right, cool. All right, so how can you avoid being used because of somebody you know? I mean, here's a good question. Like, all right, cool. So that thing is so delayed. All right. All right, cool. So I would say think about it like football, right? You have to protect the quarterback. So the defensive line is there. And they have to protect the quarterback. If the defensive line breaks down, the quarterback's going to get sacked. If the defensive line breaks down, the quarterback may throw an interception. If the defensive line breaks down, it's a possibility the quarterback is going to fumble. So you have to be on the defense on a regular. I think in situations like that, you know, a lot of times people will try to use you for the people that you know. You just have to be cognizant of it. Like, you just have to be on your P's and Q's, because you have to understand, is this person really trying to work with me, or is this person really trying to work with me to get to the person that I know? And if they're working with you to work with you, then you may feel comfortable to introduce them to some certain people. If they're trying to work with you to get to the person you know, you just got to have your radar up and be ready to shut it down, basically, and be that defensive line to protect the quarterback at all times. Because at that point, if that person is using you to get to the person and you introduce them to the person that holds the key to the city, and somehow, some way, shape, or form, the keys to the city get stolen, that's going to break down the relationship that you have with that individual, because at that point, you didn't protect the quarterback. So you have to make sure you're doing your best to understand what the purpose is for someone trying to get to that next level. To that next level with me, that person that you know. And also understand what the context is behind why do you want to meet this person? Because if I go back to the person that I know that holds the keys to the city and talk to them about, hey, I want to introduce you to this individual, they're going to ask me, what's the context behind the meeting? What's the point? What value am I going to get out of meeting this individual? And if you, as the middleman, can't determine or tell them what that information is, you know, you just put that person in jeopardy. That's this. It was just with one this morning. A lot of people that know that I know him know no way, shape, or form. And it's just, you know, it's just all about protecting the quarterback and also valuing the relationship you have with that person and making sure that they don't get used, because you have their best interest, making sure you stay in that defensive mode. I think that's the best way that I can describe it. I hope it makes sense. I was just trying to play it out in my head, but hopefully it makes sense as I described it.
For sure. So last but not least, this is probably the most important thing. You know what?
I'm gonna sign out, and then I'm gonna sign back in.
Like completely frozen at this point.
Yeah, all right. So I'm gonna sign out and then sign back in to finish it out, because the most important thing is getting your information and, you know, telling people where they can find you. So I want to make sure we get that clear. So I'm about to sign out and I'm gonna sign back in.
Okay.
All right.
Like I said, last but not least, I want to give you the opportunity to tell people where they can find you. We're going to have the links in the description, but just tell people where they can find you, where they can get your books. From Prison to Polish, not from Prison, that's the name of the movie. Polish, Young Professionals Guide for Success, and Polish, Preparing for What's Next. Cal, tell them where they can find you. website, all.
All right, cool. So just again, my name is Calvin Purnell Jr. My website is cpspeaks.com. You can email me at cpspeaks. I'm sorry, you can email me at cp@cpspeaks.com. You can find me on LinkedIn at Calvin Purnell Jr. If you just type my name, Calvin Purnell Jr., that'll come up. Instagram is Mindfully Speaking, but if you type Calvin Purnell Jr., Mindfully Speaking will come up. I'm on Twitter, but I don't really get on there that much. It's just my feed from Instagram, Facebook, Calvin Purnell Jr., and I think that's it. Yeah, those are the platforms. But yeah, that's where you're able to find me without a doubt.
All right. And again, Uncle, thank you so much for doing this for us and taking
always,
time out of your day.
Always good to get that
and
good word.
If I can share something real quick about you, if that's cool.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So with everything, and this is what I want everybody to know. So with everything that he's been talking about, everything that he's done, what people don't know is that my uncle is a convicted felon. Well, no, I'm sorry. I don't want to put that label. You have a felony conviction. I'm sorry. Yeah. So with him being, government contractor, now one of the top managers at IBM, he's a mentor, published author. This guy he has a felony conviction. So with that, it's like, if he can do it,
no excuses.
There's no excuses why you can't do it yourself.
No excuses, man.
That's all right.
None at all. That's just the light of the story. Right. Go hear the rest in the movie.
Thank you, brother. That's the thing. Like, you can do it too. There's no excuses, and we want to see everybody grinding. And again, wearing your wristband. Never give up on yourself.
Hey, yeah, I got mine on too. Yeah, that's what's up. That's what I'm gonna say. You cannot give up on yourself. Like, that's the key. Like, you have to have a certain level of resilience and a certain level of relentless inside of you. Absolutely. In order to beat it. And it all starts in your mind, right? It starts in your mind. If you know in your mind that these are the things that you're looking to accomplish, regardless of what your situation is, what your background is, when people have told you no, you can still make it happen. It's going to take some work. It's not going to happen overnight. Sometimes people, it takes people years in order to get to the levels that they want to be at. But ultimately, as long as you continue to press forward, keep your foot on the gas, hit the brakes just to slow up a little bit when you need to take some time to recharge, do it. But get back behind the wheel and keep pressing that gas pedal. My old heads taught me how to drive on 76, and they was like, don't hit the brakes. Yeah. It's like, you hit the brakes, then it's just like, you kind of slow down, and it could stop you from progressing. But regardless of what your situation is, you cannot give up on yourself. I live by that line. That's something that God gave me when I was actually incarcerated, and I stuck with it. It stuck with me to this day. And it's a tagline that I use, and it's something that I say to myself every day, multiple times a day. Those times when I feel like giving up, I tell myself, you cannot give up on yourself. I got 3 kids in college, so, they and the wife. So they definitely, need me, and I need them. And I want to make sure that they see, regardless of what you go through in life, any hardships, it's going to happen. That's just life. That's the way the world is. You think about the earth, the way God designed the earth, hills, valleys, mountains, creeks, rivers, oceans. There are some flat land. There's some places where it's straight, but all of that to say, life isn't smooth. We all go through different stages in life, different hardships in life, but we also go through those areas of success. And one of the things that I remind myself of is that helps me push myself forward on a regular basis is knowing what success tastes like, knowing what failure tastes like. You're going to have those moments of failure. The taste isn't good, but you got to learn the lessons from those failures. And inside of those moments is where the sweet spot lies. And inside of that sweet spot, that's where you get the most education. You have to be receptive to that. You have to make sure your brain is a sponge, because a lot of times when people give up, they're giving up at the moment where they're like this close to achieving that goal, right? And once they've given up, they threw the towel in. When all you got to do is take a few more steps. And next thing you know, boom, it's there. Right there. Let's think about success. And I'm going off a little bit, but I just feel led by the Spirit to talk about it. Let's think about success. From a success standpoint, sometimes when we're in the mix of getting to that point where we call what we call success, it feels like it's taking us a long time to get there. But when you get there, it's like that.
How about that?
Sit back and look at the time that's gone by. You're like, dang, gone. That was a lot of time, but it felt like it happened just like that.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But in that snap and in that long period of time that you took to build up to that level of what you call success, when you hit that, you got to reflect and look back and say, you know what did I learn from all of that I've gone through? And once you sit back and you really think about those things that you've learned, write it down. You know, really, you should be writing that stuff down along the way. You know, let me show y'all something real quick. This is what people don't really realize about success. I hope you can see this with the green screen, but I don't know if you can see it.
I see.
These are all.
I see the power.
These are journals.
Oh, I see the
Oh,
power.
those are journals.
Okay.
Oh, I wish I could see these.
Well, put it in front of you, so this way it's not blocking out.
There you go. There we go. I got it.
These are journals, and you got to write stuff down. And if you don't write stuff down, it's a possibility that you're gonna forget.
Yeah, it's true.
The other thing too, what I like to tell people now that we're in the age of technology, like I love to write things down, but now that we're in the age of technology, you have no excuse not to write anything down because we all keep these in our hands pretty much 95% of the day.
Yeah.
All right.
Notes.
And because of notes, use the notes app on your phone. Like you have no excuse not to remember something. You have a calendar to put your dates and your times in and appointments in. You have your notes apps to write down your thoughts and your ideas, to write down your success points, your failing points, what you learn. Like there's no excuse for it. You know, one of the things that I do, like, and this happened to me a few times when I'm out at networking events, connecting with people. I'm in the middle of a conversation with the person and they say something that I'm like, you know what? They say something that just blows my mind. And I say, you know what? I'm sorry. Give me a half a second. I need to write that down. And I take my phone out and I write down what they said. And I let them know, listen, I value this conversation and I want to make sure I remember what your talking points were. So that I need to take notes as we're talking. So I write it down. And I've had plenty of people come back to me and say, you know, I've never had anybody ever stop me in the middle of a conversation to write something down.
Wow.
You know, because it's just, they're taking their time to have a conversation with you. They're taking their time to pour information into you. I already know by the time I finish talking to that person and by the time I get home, I'm not going to remember what they said. So I'm going to use my technology. I'm going to use my phone. I'm going to take that note and write it down. You know, even during the process of me writing my books, there have been plenty of times when I'm at work and I'm like brainstorming, just thinking. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to put that in the book. I'll write it down I'll write it out when I get home. I get home, I don't forgot everything that I thought about.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I wrote the first draft of my first book on my iPad. I wrote the entire second book on my phone, the first draft. So there was no excuse for me not to get it done. You know, so ultimately, anything in life that you want to achieve, you can do it. Prepare your mind for it, prepare your heart. Tell people no when you need to tell them no. Tell yourself no when you need to tell yourself no, because you don't want anybody to get in the way of that God-given gift that God gave you to give back to people. That's what's important. You know, people think about the gifts and talents that we all have, and the understanding that we need to have on gifts and talents that God blessed us with is they're not for us. We're just the messenger. We need to give them back to God's people. So, you know, that's the key. I'll leave it at that. I can go deeper, but I don't want to take up too much more of your time.
That's all good.
I still got to get back to work.
This is good information. Like,
We can go back to part 2 with Kyle, can't we?
huh?
We can do part 2 with Kyle, can't we?
If you want, yeah.
Hell yes, I do. I'm stealing. I'm trying to tell you, man. This guy's this is
Kyle,
game.
thank you so much for doing this again.
Definitely appreciate your time.
Because
Sure.
this
Super
was
appreciate it,
a
man.
lot of good gems that were dropped. So thank you,
More than enough.
thank you. And to our people that is watching, gmclove.com, gmclovemerch.com. Go ahead and get you a hoodie. Then go to gmclove.com, sign up for our financial motivation course to get more game like this. But anywho, yep, On that note, we are
out
out
of here. And make sure y'all follow his Instagram, because I've been lurking. It's good daily motivation. Kyle, I be lurking. Kyle, get me. I'm gonna tell you in the morning, get me right.
All right, thanks again.
All right, cool.
All right, see you.
All right, see y'all.